family, church, and the brotherhood comes next. Second of all, we see here that this love that Paul talks about here in 1 Thessalonians chapter 4 is that regional love. Love of the brotherhood. Look again at verse 10. As to the love of the brethren, you have no need for anyone to write to you, for you yourselves are taught by God to love one another. For indeed you do practice it toward all the brethren who are in all of Macedonia. Thessalonica was located in the region of Greece called Macedonia. And you see here where there are at least two other churches of Christ close by Thessalonica. The church in Berea and the church in Philippi. And here Paul says, the Christians in the whole area of Macedonia know about your love. That's how broad their love was. They loved the brotherhood. Their love wasn't just centered on their own congregation, but it was broader than that. You see, I'm not just supposed to love myself, I'm supposed to love my family. The family isn't supposed to love just itself, it's supposed to be broader than that. It's supposed to love the church. But the church love isn't supposed to stop there either. It's supposed to love the brotherhood. Back in chapter 1 in verse 3. Now the Apostle Paul talks about and commends the Thessalonians for their labor of love and their faith and their steadfastness of hope. Labor of love. You see, love works. Love serves. Love gives. Love shows. And if you're still there in chapter 1, drop down there to verse 8. Notice that Paul says, the word of the Lord has sounded forth from you not only in Macedonia and Achaia. If you look back at the map that I have here on the screen, Achaia is the southern region of Greece. And so the gospel had been spread by the Christians in Thessalonica as far south as the region of Achaia. He says, but also in every place your love toward God has gone forth, so that we have no need to say anything. The church in Thessalonica was known for their love of the brethren. Brotherhood love. Paul had sent Timothy to the church of Thessalonica after he got ran out of town on the rail. And Timothy came back to Paul, chapter 3, verse 6, telling Paul that the Christians in Thessalonica do love you, Paul. They're not mad at you because you left them. They're not upset because you had to leave town. Timothy has come to us from you, Paul writes, and has brought us good news of your faith and love, and that you always think kindly of us, longing to see us just as we also long to see you. So the love of the Thessalonians was broader than just local. They had a brotherhood love. We live in the middle of a great brotherhood here in north central Kentucky. I spent 2 weeks in Bible camp with a lot of Christians from the North Lexington congregation and Richmond congregation and Rolling Hills congregation in the 3rd and 4th grade week of camp 2 weeks ago. There were 16 people from northern Kentucky, 16 Christians and young people, adults and young people, from the Point Pleasant Church of Christ in Hebron, Kentucky. Some of them were also from Florence and Carrollton. Just the greatest people that you've ever met. The brotherhood, of which we are members right here in north central Kentucky. Paul says, love the brotherhood. In 1682, a man by the name of William Penn received a grant from King Charles II to establish a new colony. It was really to pay off a debt that he owed William Penn in the New World. And so he came to the New World and he looked out there and he saw these beautiful forests and the rolling hills. And it was called the Forest of Penn, or in Latin, Pennsylvania. The Forest of Penn. And he established a city there that he wanted to be a place of haven and freedom and liberty for all different people of different religious faiths to come and live in freedom. And he called the city of brotherly love, or in Greek, Philadelphia. Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love. The Church of Christ is to be the city of brotherly love. A city, a community, a nation of people who love the brotherhood. And again, we are members of a great brotherhood here in north central Kentucky. Wonderful Christians in these congregations around us. And I want to encourage us to love the brotherhood. The North Lexington congregation has a series of lessons, their lectureship, coming up at the end of this week. Thursday night through Saturday night. Sunday afternoon at the Cane Ridge Meeting House. The singing begins at 6:45. Let me encourage you to love the brotherhood by supporting that meeting. Any one of those meetings, all day Saturday, any one of those meetings, as many as you can be at. The Fairfax Church of Christ in Winchester, 30 miles down the road, has a series going on during the summertime on Tuesday nights. They're studying the minor prophets. Do you know what kind of encouragement it would be for the preacher and for the members there to see some of their fellow Christians driving down there to support their effort? Oh, it's encouraging. It's encouraging when we have visitors here for our activities. They're supporting our activities. What do you do when you love your children? They say, I want to play baseball. So you say, okay, we'll go play baseball. You sit in those bleachers and to support those kids. It doesn't do anything for you necessarily except you're supporting them. When we go support these activities, gospel meetings, VBS, or whatever it is at these other congregations, it encourages them. Because we're supporting their effort and what they're trying to do. It says, I love you. More than just verbalizing. The third and final thing Paul talks about love here in this passage is at the end of verse 10. He said, verse 10 rather, indeed you do practice it, this love of the brethren, towards all the brethren who are in all of Macedonia. That's that regional brotherhood type love. But we urge you, brethren, to excel still more and more. Grow in your love. How about that? How many of you love your wife enough? Ladies, how many of you would tell your husbands this afternoon, I love you enough, I can't go any further? Don't want any more love from you. We don't do that, do we? Paul says, grow in your love. Do you love a lot? Great. Love even more. But what is love? Love is showing. Love is behavior. Love is action. So what does that mean? That means I need to show it more. I need to behave more. I need to do more to show my love. Look back at chapter 3, verse 12. Chapter 3, in verses 11 and 12, are kind of a prayer that Paul says for the Christians in Thessalonica. Now may our God and Father Himself and Jesus our Lord direct our way to you. Paul wanted to go back and visit the church of Thessalonica. But notice verse 12. May the Lord cause you to increase and abound in love for one another and for all people, just as we also do for you. Paul says, I'm praying that your love may increase and abound. Excel still more in love. So we see in this verse, we saw back in chapter 4, in the text for our lesson this morning, that we have a church-oriented love and we have a brotherhood-oriented love. Notice in this verse, chapter 3, verse 12, that Paul says, you need to abound and increase in your love for one another and for all people. You see, there's the world. Love the world. The people in the world. Now, Paul says, you do that just as I've done for you. How did Paul show his love for the Thessalonians? Nope. Jump back to chapter 2 and look at verse 8. In chapter 2 and verse 8, Paul shows two ways that he showed his love for the Christians in Thessalonica. Having so fond an affection for you, we were well pleased to impart to you not only the gospel of God, but also our own lives, because you have become very dear to us. Well, how did Paul show his love to the Thessalonians? Number one, he showed his love by teaching them the gospel. That is the best, the highest, the most important way that we can show our love to anybody, is to teach them the gospel. But then second of all, Paul says here, I have used my life in service to you. To whom is our life used in service? Do we use our life for serving self? Think about those circles again. To whom is my family dedicated to serve? Is it to serve with myself? Is my family serving itself? Is that what my family exists for, is to serve itself? In the congregation, does the congregation exist to serve itself? A self-centered family or a self-centered congregation is no more pleasant to the eye than a self-centered individual. You see, this love is always directed out. Beyond self, beyond family, beyond the church, even beyond brotherhood. Paul said, I'm using my life in service to you. Paul also showed his love to him by being sacrificial in the sense that he stayed back in Athens and sent Timothy by himself to Thessalonica because he wanted Timothy to go encourage the church there. And Paul also showed his love by verbalizing his concern for them as well as thanking God for them. So love is more than just verbal.